Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. And now your host, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Yannik Cudjoe-Virgil, founder of Merlynn Acquisitions. Welcome to the show, Yannik.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to interview today because I know that you have a very interesting story, different than most of the syndicators that we bring onto the show. So I'd like to let you tell your story from the beginning. Tell us how you ended up as a commercial real estate syndicator.
Absolutely. So my background, as you mentioned, is a little different. I got into real estate back in 2017 after retiring from the NFL. I played linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. And unfortunately, I had a knee injury that I had to walk away, from the game early. And this was something that was, what I would call my red pill moment in real estate, right? It's, a moment in your life where you have your back against the wall and you really have to make a pivotal shift in your life to get you to the next stage. So for me, it was not knowing exactly what I wanted to do after football, right? There's a saying of, there's a 3 to 5 year lifespan in the NFL, but a lot of people that transition out of the NFL have a hard time because your entire life you are focused on getting to the best stage in football, right? At a high level. And so when that shuts down and you have no way to turn, a lot of guys fall into depression, and it's a very hard time with transitioning into life after football. So for me, luckily, I grabbed on to Rich Dad Poor Dad while I was rehabbing a knee injury. And this significantly, changed my life. It changed the way I thought about money. It changed the way I handled money. And literally, before reading that book, I spent $20,000 in 1 month and had no idea exactly what I spent it on. And you've heard stories about NFL players going broke after football. I did not want to be part of that statistic. So today, here I am as a real estate investor syndicator, and I'm happy to dive more into what we do in our story.
Yeah, awesome. So I understand that early on you were doing some asset management, and that's when you started investing. Can you pick up the story there and get us to the present day?
Absolutely. So my journey in real estate began as a commercial real estate, broker, doing multifamily investment sales, office and retail tenant rep. And that was a way for me to get knowledge in the commercial real estate industry. It's not like single family where you can just find a property tomorrow and purchase it, with some guidance with your real estate agent. Commercial real estate is much more in depth. It requires a team, it requires, financial modeling and all of the, bells and whistles of how to actually put a deal together and execute at the same time. And so for me, it was a way to get into the real estate space via a brokerage and learn, and then, sort of work my way up into, higher level commercial real estate acquisitions and asset management. So I started off in brokerage, moved into several asset management roles for institutional and private equity, retail capital, private equity firms. And that allowed me to, learn a ton from multifamily to office to retail. I managed, millions of dollars of commercial real estate, and then took that knowledge and then implemented that into my own business, which is our own syndication company. And it's been, a hell of a journey.
Great. So tell us about your syndication business.
Absolutely. So we're based in Baltimore, Maryland. We do value add C-class multifamily acquisitions. And, to date, we've done a couple of deals. We've done an 18-unit deal, 22-unit deal. We have knowledge in Baltimore, Maryland, which is, one of the markets where it is a cash flowing market, but it's, by sure, a block by block market. It's on one side, there's, can be boarded up homes, and then the other side, it can be a completely different neighborhood. And so the dynamics in Baltimore is a little bit special, in which requires you to understand the market fundamentals and where you can find good, solid cash flow buckets, but then also identifying, good areas to invest in. So right now we're in the 20 to 100 unit space in the multifamily space, and we're looking to scale up and do some larger deals soon.
Yeah, exciting. Well, you mentioned having your commercial brokerage background, and I think that's really interesting because I'd like to get people interested in things maybe outside of multifamily. When you look at the entire commercial real estate landscape, what do you like these days in terms of opportunity?
Yeah. So I definitely, I'm always going to be a proponent of multifamily, right?
Mhm.
That's what we do. It's quote unquote easy for people to scale into a multifamily from single family because it's literally the same, tenant base to some degree, but it's just at a larger scale and requires more infrastructure, right? We're also interested in net lease opportunities, right? Where you
Mhm.
have a Wawa or you have a Royal Farms that's on a pad, and you can get you can get those deals that are already leased up by other institutional private equity firms that put it on the market that typically have 20-year leases, right? That might have some escalations in there as well. For us, it's all about cash flow. How can we keep the financial freedom that we've already attained, but then also help our investor base get the same financial freedom that we all want, right? And that's the beauty of real estate, is being able to have that set of cash flow on the side to offset your expenses in your everyday life. So, we're excited about net lease opportunities,
Mhm.
triple net leases, which is also great as well. It's not like multifamily where you incur all of the expenses. Literally in a triple net lease, you can, pass through some of those expenses to, those tenants, depending on
Mhm.
what you negotiate in the lease going in. And so that is definitely more of a passive to some degree investment than multifamily, but they're all in different worlds, right? But at the end of the day, again, we look for cash flow. How can we get the financial freedom for ourselves and our investors to enjoy? And we really love this business.
Yeah, great. Well, you mentioned two great opportunities. I think multifamily is a great place to be. That's where I'm at, and provides a lot of great cash flow, triple net and net leases. A lot of opportunities there too. You get much higher cap rates. And I think that's a huge advantage that people are beginning to realize now that this cap rate compression looks like it may have come to an end, or at least vastly slowed down. We can't expect appreciation to continue like the freight train that it has been over the last decade or so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for us, it's again, it's about finding risk averse investments, right? We can't necessarily bet on appreciation because that's something that we 100% probably cannot control. What we can
Mhm.
control is finding little tweaks in properties that we can add and create value out of, to be competitive in the market, right? To produce returns, but then also investing in properties that have some sort of risk adjusted return to that component within the investment fundamentals. So that's why we really love multifamily, but we're also looking at triple net opportunities as well, for that nature.
Great. And I'd like to get a little deeper into your investing thesis. So you live in Baltimore and you're investing in Baltimore. What can you tell us about the market that people would want to know?
Yeah, so Baltimore is one of those markets that as I mentioned, it's a block by block city. But if you look at Baltimore and the dynamics within the employment base, it actually has one of the more recession resistant employment base. When we talk about educational facilities, medical facilities, those types of jobs tend to be recession resistant. Not recession proof. Compared to what some folks out there might be saying, nothing, we don't really consider any investment to be proof, right?
Mhm.
Certainly all investments have risk, but we look for the markets that have recession resistant employment bases, and Baltimore is one of those markets where you have the largest medical facility in Baltimore, which is Johns Hopkins, and just having government jobs as well, right? The proximity to DC, right? Government jobs, medical facilities, educational facilities tend to be recession resistant employment bases. And for us, how we look at markets is that we try not to invest in any market that doesn't have, or that does have, a lot of diversity in the employment base, right? We don't want to be like Detroit back in the last financial crisis, right? And that market was oversaturated with the auto industry. And look at Detroit now, right? It's dilapidated, it's slow. And so we try not to invest in any market that has more than 30% of one specific employment base. We don't want to be too over leveraged. And so we found that Baltimore has that great diversity of different employment sectors that is recession resistant to protect our investment, in the case of any, unforeseen market shift.
Yeah, well, a lot that I can add on to that. I mean, I'm from Detroit, so talk about a block by block or even a street by street market. Yeah, Detroit has some issues right now. I'm not currently investing in Detroit. I'm considering it, but if I did, it would be probably a joint venture as opposed to a syndication risking other people's money, and also something that I would do out of a great understanding of the local climate and situation. Yeah. So then, okay, so let's maybe get a little deeper in. You like to do value add. So maybe you could take us through one of your acquisitions. Do you have a favorite acquisition?
Yeah, so we could talk about, our 18-unit deal that we were doing a value add, business plan on for sure.
All right, sure. Yeah, like the way I look at it is that a great acquisition has a great story behind it. So what's the story behind your 18? Was
Yeah,
this your
absolutely.
first large one?
Yeah, so this is one of the first deals that we've done. And it was a deal that's located in, again, Baltimore, Maryland, that we acquired, but we did it, we structured the debt a little differently. And so what I mean by that is that, we anticipated that the markets would shift going into 2022, given the fact that inflation is, where it is today. The Fed's number one goal is to tamper inflation and then manage the employment, rates within the U.S., right? And so we understood that, hey, there's going to be higher rates in the horizon, right? So for us, we took a different approach from a bridge loan to taking that to a credit union to getting a construction to perm loan. And so, what that allows us to do is that we don't have to renovate all of the units, and we have to, we don't have to be stressed in year 2 or 3 to refinance, give back investor capital and maybe, ride the deal out for the next 2 years and then sell. Having that construction to perm loan now allows us to get that construction interest only loan at about 4.5%. And I think within our deal, it converts, after 2 years into a 4% rate at a permanent loan, right? And so not having to worry about higher rates in the future, having that, stability in your business plan going in definitely gave our investors more confidence with investing with us. So we have a business plan of turning, all of the units around within a 2 to 3 year span. So far, we've renovated almost 50% of that, within the first 12 months. And, we're excited about being able to deliver double-digit IRRs for, our investors, well above 20%. So sometimes these smaller deals, they're a great opportunity to get, high cash flow, just because, you're likely the best person if in the syndication space, right? You're likely the smarter person that can put together a deal like that compared to a smaller single family person that knows how to maximize cash flow, maximize the operations on it, because those deals are too big for larger institutional guys, right? But the caveat to the smaller deals obviously is that it's more management intensive, right? You're not able to hire a full-time property management leasing professional, or a property manager on the property, or a full-time maintenance guy, right? So some of you lack in the efficiencies somewhat on the smaller deals, but they are they tend to be higher cash flow as well, because you know how to extract the value. So yeah, that's a little bit about our 18-unit acquisition.
Great. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I see a lot of the same things. I like some of these smaller deals, particularly these days, because I see a lot of meat on the bone. And I was wondering if it was just a matter of being in the process of scaling up, or if you actually see something that you like. And I love those smaller deals. A lot of them, they're great deals, and there's just that the bigger fish don't want to jump in because they're looking at 100, 200, 300 units. So yeah, good stuff. Now, you mentioned managing your own property, so that's interesting. I know everybody who's managed their own property has stories. Are there any stories that you can tell us on the air?
Yeah, so we still have a third party property manager on the property, and we've been able to negotiate a favorable rate with that property, just because we were able to kind of find a tweener. When I say a tweener, someone who is, in between single family and multifamily. A lot of times, because of the the volume and the larger account, you can probably get a little bit more wiggle room on the fees, right? But as far as stories, for us on this specific property, we had something like a mold issue, something that is extremely important when it comes to overseeing repairs and maintenance and making sure your property is well taken care of. When we acquired this property, this tenant had mold in her bathroom. And it was a crazy story that there was actually a raccoon like floating around in the ceiling. And so we knew this at acquisition. We budgeted it as a part of our immediate repairs line item, when you close on the property. And so, long story short, we get a text, in the middle of the night from our property manager. And this is something that she doesn't usually do, but it was an emergency, that the raccoon decided to penetrate into the bathroom ceiling, and I guess, jumped on the tenant while she was asleep at night in the middle of the night. And she had to call animal control, and it was an absolute mess. But that's kind of part of the game sometimes in this business that people don't really talk about, right? Specifically in the world of asset management, which is another topic that people don't usually discuss when learning how to acquire multifamily or just manage multifamily, is that a lot of asset management is the complex between offense and defense, right? The complex between being focused on the financials and getting your investors the returns and making sure things are moving on time. And then there's the blocking and tackling side of things, like that story that I just mentioned that, people don't usually talk about, or people don't really know, that's part of this business. And so, a great asset manager is someone who is able to, excel on both sides, right? Someone who is smart enough to tackle the financials and get the business plan across the finish line. And then the other side is someone who is creative and who can handle adversity when it comes to the blocking and tackling and the fire drills that you might have to do on a daily basis. So that's a quick story about something that happened on that property.
Yeah. Well, I love the raccoon part. I mean, as a landlord who has dealt with a raccoon once, I know that that's not easy. I mean,
It was
I
two
had
raccoons. There was an
two.
issue. The issue was the tree. There was a tree that was going into the roof. And so that was kind of like the alleyway for the raccoons that were penetrating into the roof. And I think, I'm by no means an animal expert, but I think there's some sort of like nesting component, when they find their territory. And so they started accumulating a little family in the roof. But,
Oh yeah, well, they
unfortunately,
love that pink
we got a
insulation. I
surprise.
mean, they can do quite a bit of damage. So yeah, I hope your insurance handled that, because that's a very expensive issue.
Well, the crazy part is we actually budgeted to replace the roof anyhow. So it's like, it's one of those things where, it wasn't a big of a claim to, it didn't meet, we didn't feel like it was necessary to like take on the deductible or anything for the insurance, because we wanted to replace the roof anyway, because we knew that was an issue going in up front. So
Right.
it was just unfortunate that
Yeah.
that happened,
Yeah. Yeah. Those masked bandits, they don't look quite as adorable after they cause damage like that. So, okay. So we touched on your NFL career again. I'd like to know, like, what sort of lessons did you learn in the NFL that you were able to take into commercial real estate?
Yeah. So I think that, sports is a space where it really prepares you a lot for life, right? For me, it's being able to handle adversity, being able to, push through when things get tough, right? Being able to be resourceful and creative, being able to translate those study habits, right? From watching film and translating that psychology of just how you apply, what you've learned to action. I honestly think that all athletes have some entrepreneurial characteristics, which are some of the things that I've just outlaid, right? It's being able to handle adversity is probably the biggest one in entrepreneurship, right? Nothing ever goes, success is not linear. It's more like up and down and, and sideways and up and down and sideways, right? And that is something that I've definitely taken from the sports realm, professional, college, even from being as a kid to real estate today, because entrepreneurship is all about being able to create teams, being able to handle adversity, being able to quickly identify someone's character, and being able to just put things together and taking it to execution.
Yeah, great lessons. And maybe that would dovetail with something that I really wanted to ask you, which is how are you helping some of those younger players understand how to manage their money? So as you mentioned, they've obviously got a lot of the traits. I mean, that desire to be a champion, the ability to handle a competitive environment has got to be, putting you many steps ahead. But how do you get them to, somebody who may have never had money in their hands and all of a sudden they get these giant checks? How do you get them to see the investment mentality?
Yeah. So, I like to say, when you give a kid, a bunch of money, in this case, millions of dollars overnight, right? I call them overnight millionaires, because I was a broke college student and, going from having, $10 in the account to getting a nice little signing bonus. I mean, that's life-changing money for a lot of people, right? And so a lot of times, these athletes don't have the financial background, coming from different, societies and different cultures, right? They don't have the necessary financial background to know what to do with that money. And so for me, it is being able to share my story and educating them on, how real estate can be that vehicle to help you retain a lot of the wealth that you've created or you will create in the NFL space, right? And it all just comes down to education, right? And so I try to use my story again, use my expertise to help people analyze deals, or whether it's investing with us because they want to put their money to work, or just being someone who they can talk to, right, when they're looking to have guidance on what to invest in, because that's another component to it, right? A lot of athletes get steered into bad investments because they don't understand the concept of risk, right? When you have checks that are coming in 50, 100, 200, 300,000, on a weekly basis throughout the season, right? All you see, in your mind, the perception is, this is how money works, right? I'm supposed to get big amounts of checks. If I'm not getting it, then it doesn't make sense. And so just being able to educate them on understanding that, hey, this window of opportunity is a small 5 to 10 to 15, if you're lucky, window to maximize the most amount of money possible. But when you get out of the NFL, you are not going to be making the same amount of money if you don't know how to utilize it and put it to work and get those returns that might be outside of market returns, right? So a lot of it, to circle back, has been on just educating them on basic finances and what a market return looks like, so they can go out there and whether it's invest with us or another company or do other private equity investments, at least that they have some sort of basic foundational knowledge on how to do so.
Yeah, excellent. So obviously, some of your investors are former NFL players. That's some of the people that you are obviously marketing to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I hope that story continues to grow and resonate, because I know there's a lot of need for that. I could only imagine what it would be like to be in that situation and to get so rich so young and really not know what to do with the money. So kudos to you for being out there and helping some people.
Absolutely. I enjoy doing what I do. I've been in their shoes. I understand, what it's like, and so it's a different message when you've come from that background. Right. So we love what we do.
Awesome. Well, so now let's get to the part of the show that we do every time. We've got a lightning round. Are you ready to head into the lightning round, Yannik?
Let's do it.
All right. So tell us something about one of your real estate markets that most people wouldn't know. I know you told us a lot about Baltimore, so this doesn't have to be something technical. It could be just something fun.
Yeah. So no, what I want people to know about Baltimore is that we have something called tax credits. And so we have something that's called CHAP. It's basically a historic tax credit where you can find a property that's located in a historic district. It doesn't have to be multifamily. It can be single family as well. And we're currently implementing this strategy on a smaller scale. We haven't found any opportunities to do it on a larger scale. But the basis is, if you find a property that's located in a historic district and it needs renovations, basically what you can do is you can apply for a tax credit. And what I mean by that is that you go to the CHAP office. And so what they would do is that they would look at your scope of work, all of the items that you want to do on the property. You have to agree to keep any historical elements to the property, whether it's hardwood flooring, which you can just refinish at a cheap price. Or maybe there's a cornice on the front that you can just refinish and paint over. And what it allows you to do is that it allows you to freeze the city taxes for 10 years. So for example, we've bought, a couple of properties that we're doing this on, but just for good numbers, let's say your taxes in Baltimore, is maybe $1,000 a month, right? Or even in some cases, we've bought properties, single family properties, for $50 a year in taxes, right? I don't know if I said 1,000 a month or I meant 1,000 a year, right? And so when you buy the property, let's say for good numbers, $100,000, and the taxes for the year is $50, they would essentially freeze those taxes at $50 a year for the next 10 years because you agreed to renovate the property and retain some of the structural or rather historical elements to it. And now when you renovate that property, let's say it's worth $300 after you put in maybe $75,000 to $100,000 in renovations, you can literally have a cash flowing machine when your taxes are, think about it, $50 in taxes for the next 10 years, rents go up every year, appreciation happens. We have properties that are literally cash cows because of this strategy. And so for anyone who's interested in investing in Baltimore, definitely look at historical tax credits. It's called CHAP, CHAP.
Now, is that transferable?
Yep,
So
it is.
You sell the property 7 years in, then
so think about it, right? It's no different from other tax credits in the marketplace. People buy tax credits on office buildings, when they're converting them to a multifamily, right? Sometimes your local district would give you historic, some sort of tax credit subsidy on your taxes to help make the deal pencil when converting something from an office to a multifamily building, just because the city wants more housing, right? And they sell that, at some sort of premium because now you don't have to pay taxes for the next 10 years, right? And so it's no different from that concept. So it's a wonderful strategy.
Yeah, I love it. What's some advice you would give your younger self?
Some advice I would give my younger self is not to try to do this business all alone, right? Specifically in the syndication business. There's so many moving parts, from raising capital, the investor relations piece, the asset management piece, the acquisitions piece, all of the aspects that go into putting together a syndication team. If you're doing a small deal, maybe you can get by it. But if you're really looking to scale your portfolio and do hundreds and thousands of units, you really have to know how to, build your team. And for me, it was something that I had to learn, because in the sporting realm, it's easy for you to just try to do everything yourself, right? You have this mentality of, as long as I can, figure it out, then it'll be okay. But actually, in the world of business, and specifically in the world of of real estate, you would have so much pain trying to do everything yourself in this business, right? And so if I was to do it all over again, I would definitely focus more on how can I build my team the quickest, because you don't necessarily have to be the smartest in the room. You just have to be in the room with a bunch of smart people, and you can be successful.
Great. Now, real estate is a place that I think there's a lot of dodgy advice going around. What would you say is the worst real estate advice you've ever received?
The worst real estate advice, the worst real estate advice I've ever received is find a deal and the money would come.
Yes.
That is the worst real estate advice I've ever gotten, ever, because that is not how it works. It might it might work, for a smaller $50,000 deal,
Right.
right? Where you can get, maybe a couple checks from private money. Maybe someone has, a
Yeah.
couple thousand in the bank to lend you. But when you're doing $1 million transactions, 2, 5, $10 million deals, you
Yeah.
need to have that equity lined up. And so being, having this mindset of, find a deal, the money would come, automatically. Yeah, I have this great deal, invest with me. And oh, it's, a bunch of money just falling from the sky. That is a recipe for disaster in commercial real estate, right? The best
Right.
thing to do is have your capital sources lined up, know where you're going to get your debt, know where your equity is coming from, prime your investors, make sure that they know exactly what you're looking for. So when you bring a deal to them, it's quicker to get that yes,
Yeah.
to for them to move forward and commit to that investment, as opposed to bringing them something that they never have heard before. You haven't, educated them on the process. You haven't nurtured that lead and that contact towards the closing phase with them being able to invest with you. And so that is probably the biggest fallacy that I've heard in the real estate space within my 4 years of being in real estate, right? Find a deal, the money would come. Never believe that story.
I love it. And I think that we're at least 3 or 4 episodes of a streak on that advice. Everybody has said that I've asked, that I've interviewed in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I agree. Definitely, you want to prepare. You want to get some soft commits. You want to know what it's going to look like when you go out there for real. You want to dress rehearsal. Well, let's follow that up with, what is the best real estate advice you've ever received?
Best real estate advice I've ever received. So the best real estate advice, honestly, I've ever received is to always think outside of the box.
Yeah.
It's so easy for with so much content out there about real estate opportunities and how to do specific things. It's easy for someone to just fall into a specific box based off of what they've been taught, right? Specifically, let's talk about the syndication space, right? Some people might say, well, if we just go out there and just try to syndicate the deal and go find an attorney to help us, put this deal together, it'll all be okay. But maybe that deal can be taken down in a different direction. Maybe it's some sort of creative financing, right? So you don't have to necessarily raise all that equity up front, right? Maybe it's
Love it.
being able to find a joint venture, right? Someone who's able to help you cut costs on the attorney fees, the SEC fees, right? The best advice that I've got was just find a way to always look at a transaction, as creatively as possible, because you never know, with just a little thought or just a different set of, action items that you might take, how more lucrative, a deal can bring to you, or, you'd be able to take that deal down a little bit differently that would, save you on some down payment costs. You just never know. So always, look at a deal from a transaction engineered perspective and find a way to be as creative as possible.
Yeah. Great advice and very timely, as the market appears to be turning right now. It never mattered more to get out there and find ways to make these deals work and think outside the box. Love it. So now is when we take a nod to the randomness of the universe. And I've got a deck of random question cards here. So just let me know when to stop cutting the deck and we'll take the top question.
All right, stop it there.
All righty. What do you wish you were better at saying no to?
Oh man, gonna put me on the spot there. Me, I am a person who loves to help people. I enjoy giving people advice on how to be successful, giving people the blueprint or the roadmap so they can go out there and create generational wealth for their family. But for me personally, sometimes in the world of entrepreneurship, we get busy, right? And sometimes we have to spend more time with our family, right? Spend more time with the ones who we really love, the ones who really matter in our life, who's going to be there for us when things are up and down. And so for me, it's saying no to, I wish that I can say no more to some of those elements that I would give my time to, right? Or get some folks that I would give my time to with helping them on their journey. But it's a constant battle that I have with myself, because on one end, you want to be a servant, you want to help people, it's your nature to do that. But on the other end, you do have a family to provide for and to be with, during a day or a week, right? So it's one of those, difficult complexes that I deal with on a daily basis. But for me, it's all about just prioritizing your time, right? And doing the best that you can on a daily basis.
Great. I've heard that's when you need to write your book. You got to write your book that's got all your insights in it. And then when people come for your time, you can just say, look, you got to get this. It's on Amazon.
That's
all right. Exactly. Let's hope. I think it could be. But that dovetails right into our next question, which is name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader or an entrepreneur, and why. I think I know what you're going to name.
So I think you, well, let me say this. What I am going to say is this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Okay.
And for me, that was very instrumental on how I am able to prioritize my time as an entrepreneur on a daily basis, right? From focusing on all of the revenue producing items in our business that actually drive us to create revenue, right? Because that's what we're in entrepreneurship for. It's not to make this a hobby. It's for us to create those revenue streams and create businesses that we can hopefully be as passive as possible and go spend time with our family. And so The One Thing by Gary Keller is a book that I think every entrepreneur should read, because when I started real estate, I was spending a lot of time from going to tour properties to just something as minute as just checking emails. It just takes up so much of your time on a daily basis, especially when you're subscribed to so many email blasts and things that just clog up your inbox, right? But answering emails 9 times out of 10 does not create any revenue for your business. So The One Thing by Gary Keller is a great book that would actually allow you to focus on, hey, what is the one thing today that I need to do to be successful? Or what is the one thing that I need to do such that by doing that, everything else would be easier for me for the rest of the day? So The One Thing by Gary Keller, great book.
Yeah, beautiful advice. And I think that's 2 in a row for Gary Keller. I believe in our last show, it was The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. So great author, great pick. Okay. How has a failure set you up for later success?
So how I look at it is that, we've failed. We've been failing since a child, right? When we tried to walk, when we tried to, get up and start from crawling to walking to eventually running, we got to those steps by failing, right? Failure is a part of growth in our lives. And so a lot of people try to run away from failure. Me, I try to, and it sounds a little weird and awkward, right? But I try to run to failure as quickly as possible, right? And when I say that, I mean that I want to be successful as quickly as possible. So in order for me to understand that with success does come failure, I need to fail as quickly as possible so I can eliminate, as much heartache and as much time that it takes for me to be successful. Mm-hmm. So, failure is something that we should all embrace, because it's something that, requires us to get to that next level.
Great. Fail fast.
Exactly.
Can you set us out with a favorite success-oriented quote?
So I would say, favorite success story, I would, just say it, my biggest success for me was, being able to buy my mom a home. We came to this country when I was 10 years old, and just being able to, or rather just being afforded the ability to buy her a home, a few years ago, was something that I've always wanted to do in my life. And I'm something I'm really proud about, because your parents work so hard to put you in certain situations to be successful. And I figured that was just a small gift of appreciation for my mom, and I read this other quote, and I don't necessarily know who said it, but it said the greatest human act is to inspire. And for me, it's not about, when it's all said and done, for me, it's not about, how much money did he make, how many properties did he have, how much flashy cars did he have. For me, it's about creating an impact, right? Who can you, how can you inspire another generation to change their life, right? And change, their families' lives and their kids' lives, right? And so, what gets me going on a daily basis is being able to create generational wealth and being able to also create that impact in other people through whether it's education or helping someone get to the next step or just impacting communities that would inspire them in their own lives as well. So
Beautiful and heartwarming. I want to thank you for taking the time to come and talk to your audience today. I just want to make sure that they're able to reach you. So if they want to learn more about how to invest with you, where can they find you?
yeah, absolutely. So our company, again, it's called Merlynn, Merlynn acquisitions.com. I'm happy to have a 10 to 15-minute phone call with anyone that's interested in getting into the real estate space, multifamily, or investors who are interested in looking at other risk-adjusted investments. We do have a due diligence checklist that we provide to all of our, investors on actually how to, look at different properties when it comes to the due diligence phase to make sure that it's a good investment. So it's free. Just go to our website, merlynacquisitions.com. And thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to come down here today.
Thanks.